Bad news, gang. I've broken down on the Humber Bridge. I've just been recovered off. I'm having quite a bad ME flare-up right now. I'm safe. Obviously, by the time you read this, watch this, you'll know I'm safe. The van is dead. It's terminal, and it couldn't have happened at a much worse time than it did. I will go into full details later, when I'm better. Not now.
It's the day after the breakdown. Yeah, I need to fill you in on where we're at with it, I suppose. Sadly, this is the end of the road for me with this van. I am in a situation where I can't sort this out. The problem isn't the work itself. This engine is a nice simple engine, it's well supported. I could rebuild it. The problem is the fact I move house, as I'm recording this, in 2 weeks. And it's going to be 250 miles that I'm going, just about. I can't afford the cost of transporting this van. I don't have it in my budget. Everything is just gone on the cost of moving house. I haven't got enough time to strip the engine down and rebuild it. Even if I didn't have the pressure of the house move, 2 weeks isn't enough time. I can't give it to somebody else to do. Again, time and money is the problem there. The whole point with the van was to use it to do the drive to the new place. I was going to have the removal company take the majority of my stuff, and then the last few bits and pieces, like my work computer, the few kitchen things, last bits of your clothes, those kind of things, they would come in the van with me, and I'd do the drive, take my time, and get it ready for its next stage of work. I've got the ramp working now, exhaust is sorted, we know structurally it's in really good shape. I've got the repair section for the windscreen surround. I was all geared up to put a new windscreen in it as well, but none of that's now going to happen, sadly. Now, because, again, the time limit being what it is, I can't leave this where I'm at the moment. The landlord is not going to be happy about that, so I've got to move this before I go. That means I can't put it up for sale, because it's going to take too long. I've already put feelers out, and I will be giving the van away. It's worth more than free. Even in its current condition, it's worth more than free. I am aware of that, and it is painful to give it away, but I'm in a situation where I don't have much choice. It's that or the scrapyard. And I don't feel right scrapping this van. So then the next thing, I suppose, is what happened, why didn't I record it, and everybody will have an opinion, okay? So I'm just going to tell you what I know. If I ever find out what actually went wrong with this, if the person after me lets me know, I will of course let you know, but we probably won't find out. I had driven over to Hull to see my friend Danny, and to get the ramp working. And we spent a very pleasant day together on a glorious sunny spring afternoon, putting everything right, getting everything working, and the van had been good as gold. Now, with hindsight, there was one thing that I'd been hearing and I couldn't pin it down. It sounded like maybe a wheel bearing, maybe a noisy tyre. And I'd looked several times, I couldn't find anything amiss. Wasn't using any coolant, wasn't using any oil. Fuel consumption was about where you would expect it to be. It was performing perfectly fine. I wasn't having any issues at all. Just this little noise in the background that I couldn't quite pin down. I suspect that was the start of the problem. And that was about a week ago. But because everything was behaving and there was no obvious sign of any problems, even when I'd looked, I just had to just accept it's maybe an old car noise. So we set off from Scunthorpe, headed over to Hull, and that means going over the Humber Bridge, and everything was fine. Funnily enough, on my way over the Humber Bridge, there was somebody in, I think it was an Austin 7 Swallow, adorable tiny little thing, and they'd actually broken down, and I remember thinking, oh, I'm glad that's not me, that's an awful place to break down. But we buzzed along and got to Hull. Van was perfectly fine, perfectly happy, dealt with the traffic, no signs of, getting hot or overheating or anything, good as gold. Spent the day with Danni. It got to the evening, I wanted to get home before it got dark, and started the van, no problem. Set off, no problem. Got through a bit of traffic, and there was a point where I started hearing sort of a clicking, rattling noise. Very quiet, couldn't quite pin it down. I could smell a little bit of oil smoke, but the rocker cover gasket has been weeping a tiny bit, just old car things. Not enough to leave any puddles, just a tiny bit. So I had a look under the bonnet, I tightened up the rocker cover nuts just a smidge. I couldn't see anything amiss. I tried, while I was sat at the roadside, I tried just revving the car a little bit, sounded perfectly normal, perfectly fine. So I set off again, and I could hear occasionally this little clicky rattly noise, but I couldn't get it to reliably happen. So I was like, well, maybe because we've had all the wiring in and out in the back, and I've shifted all the load that I've got in there, maybe something's just rattling. It's a very rattly van, you've heard in the other videos. So we carried on, and I got to Humber Bridge, got to the toll, have to wind the window down, and I could hear a clicking, a rattling. But again, I'd got nothing coming up on the dash. Everything was behaving normal. The van was performing as well as it ever has. So I carried on. And as I got over the crest of the hill, that clicky rattly became suddenly a persistent rattle. And I was losing power. And I knew I was over the crest of the hill, so I knew it wasn't because I was going uphill. And as I was going along, the temperature light and the oil pressure light flashed on. So I dropped a gear, and I could carry on, but the van was struggling. I could feel it was slowing down, and it was getting noisier. And in my gut, I knew this was bad. I knew this was bad. I did not want to break down on the Humber Bridge. Dropped another gear. When the lights flashed on again, lost more power. I was doing this until I got into second gear, and I was like, right, if I keep pushing here, I'm going to break something terminally. I'm going to do something here. My mechanical sympathy was like, you need to ease off completely. So put it into neutral and just saw how far I could coast. Taking as much stress off the car as I could. Hazards on, obviously. And I got as far as the SOS phone. I almost made it to the end of the bridge, but not quite. Pulled over as far as I could. Grabbed my phone. Got out the car. Everything else could just stay in the car. It's not a very good place to break down at all. If it was going to get hit by somebody, so be it. I wasn't going to be in it. Grabbed my phone. Got over the barrier. The SOS phone wasn't working. Which is great. It's quite windy on the bridge, quite exposed. I got myself down onto the footpath, and the first thing I did was I called Danni and let Danni know the van had died. Just let them know not to worry, I was going to sort it out. And I considered going back into the van to grab the camera, just to get some B-roll footage of it broken down on the bridge. I opted not to, because I quite like being alive. So it's a risk I didn't take. That's why there's no footage of me actually breaking down. There's no footage of the van on the bridge. I called my breakdown recovery, and that's when I found out that the reception on the bridge is really spotty, so it kept dropping out on me. But they were really good. Now, this isn't a sponsorship. I'm with Classic Line, and I have to say that they were excellent. They got through all the stuff that they need to get through to find me very quickly. They were very patient. When I mentioned that I've got ME, because I knew I was now at risk of quite a bad crash, I'd already done a full day of socialising and driving, and I knew I had enough energy to get home, but I didn't know if I had enough energy to deal with it getting cold and potentially waiting for several hours for recovery. However, because I have the ME diagnosis now, I could say that to the recovery company. They put me down as a priority, and it turned out they recovered me home within an hour, which was exceptional. The highways agency turned up very quickly after I'd broken down. They were very helpful because as I was waiting, I did start to have a crash, and it meant that I lost the ability to move very easily. I also started getting muscle spasms and seizing up, and as you probably heard when I did the quick video as I was broken down, I lost the ability to speak easily. It was quite emotional, but the highways agency guys were wonderful. They were absolutely fantastic. They looked after me. They made sure I was safe. They got me a mug of water from somewhere, which was very appreciated. And they stayed with me until Danni turned up with a hot flask of coffee. And then shortly afterwards, the recovery truck arrived. And we made it home. The weird thing is, I don't feel particularly sad. I haven't had the van long enough to bond with it fully like I have with something like the Princess. And it was bought to do a job. And it's been very useful. It's been fantastic. I thought I'd be more upset getting to this point than I am. But it is what it is. I've got somebody coming out to look at it today. See if they can figure out what's gone wrong, and they may adopt it, sort out the engine, and move it on. If I get more about that, I will let you know. What I think's happened, it hasn't seized the engine, but it's hard to turn. And I think it's cooked the bearings. The other thought Danni and I had is it has a mechanical fuel pump, and it's very wet on the outside, which it shouldn't be. And we wondered if perhaps something internal in that mechanical fuel pump has died, and fuel has been pumped into the oil, thinned the oil, washed the bores, and therefore there's no lubrication, and that's what's done the damage. The worst thing is there was no warning for this, no significant warning. And I think from the start of the problem to me breaking down, I think I'd travelled 5 miles. I had another 18 miles to go to get home, and there was no way. It couldn't do it. Sad end to this story. I wish it had been a better end for my journey with this one. One of the things the recovery driver mentioned is it stinks of fuel. And having opened the bonnet now, yeah, it reeks. But this right here is the mechanical fuel pump. And the underside of that is still quite wet, and it was absolutely soaked when I pulled over. But yeah, the smell of fuel under here is very strong, which is odd because it normally isn't. You can see as well back here, there's quite a bit of oil back there, more than usual. And it's very oily along the top here, on the top of the rocker cover, which suggests that it's blowing out through the cap. But yeah, whatever's gone wrong here, it's terminal for this engine, I think. There's also, the expansion bottle is very full. Like, it wasn't that full when I set off. I don't know what that's about. But there's plenty of oil. Well, according to the dipstick, there's plenty of oil in, but maybe it's oil and fuel. So, yeah, what a shame. It's been a cracking little van. I would definitely recommend one of these if you want a fun little van. It's just the right size for bombing around town. It's great for parking. It's been so practical. It's just a shame that I got the lift functioning the same day that the engine has died. And if my situation was any different, I would definitely keep it. I would finish these last few jobs and I would enjoy it for a bit longer. So I hope whoever takes it on after me can fix the engine and get some more years of use and enjoyment out of it, because it definitely deserves it. It's been a super little van, and I have enjoyed my time with it immensely. I hope you've enjoyed the videos too. And I'm sorry it couldn't have been a happier end. Thanks for watching. As always, be sure to look in the description. There's more ways to support me. Now more than ever, it's probably important. And I will keep the videos on the van coming out. There's a few I've recorded, so they will keep coming out. This one's jumping the queue a bit because of the situation. And yeah, old cars, it's always a bit of a gamble. I'll see you next time.